The cold wind howled through the mountains of Mongolia as Sarah Chen pulled her thick jacket closer. She wasn't supposed to be here. The young archaeologist had wandered away from her team's main dig site, following a set of strange markings that no one else seemed interested in. Just old cave paintings, they had said. But Sarah knew better. These weren't like any cave paintings she had seen before. The beam from her flashlight bounced off the rocky walls as she walked deeper into the cave. Her boots made soft crunching sounds on the ancient ground. The cave walls here were different. They had a strange, smooth quality to them, almost like they had been polished by something long ago. Old stories from the local village kept playing in her mind. They talked about a sleeping sky beast that had fallen from the stars centuries ago. Scientists had always laughed at these tales, calling them simple myths. But the villagers still refused to come near these caves. Sarah stopped to check her map. She was now 3 hours away from base camp, much further than safety protocols allowed. But something kept pulling her forward. The markings on the walls were getting clearer, forming patterns that seemed to point deeper into the mountain. Her radio crackled. "Base to Sarah. Where are you?" "You're way off the assigned area." Sarah grabbed her radio. "I found something. These markings, they're like nothing we've seen before. Return to base immediately. A storm is coming." But Sarah had already turned off her radio. She couldn't turn back now. Not when she was so close to whatever this was. The passage suddenly opened into a massive cave chamber. Sarah's flashlight beam seemed tiny in the vast space. But there was something else here, a faint blue glow coming from the far end of the chamber. Her heart beating fast, Sarah moved closer. The temperature dropped with each step. Her equipment started beeping. The electromagnetic readings were going crazy. And then she saw it. Rising from the cave floor was a huge crystalline structure, at least 30 feet tall. But it wasn't like any crystal she had ever studied. It seemed to pulse with a deep inner light. And inside, Sarah's hand shook as she pulled out her scanner. This couldn't be real. Inside the crystal was something massive, something that looked like no creature that had ever lived on Earth. The scanner beeped as it analyzed the structure. Sarah's eyes went wide as she read the results. The readings showed organic matter inside the crystal, but the dating system kept giving impossible numbers. According to her equipment, whatever was inside was older than Earth itself. The shape inside the crystal was like something from an ancient legend, a long, serpentine body. What looked like folded wings, a skull that was both beautiful and terrifying. It was like a dragon, but unlike any dragon artwork Sarah had ever seen. This wasn't something created by human imagination. This was real. Sarah's hands fumbled as she set up her recording equipment. The scientific community would need proof. As she worked, she noticed something strange. The readings from her equipment seemed to get stronger whenever she moved closer to the crystal. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, recording preliminary findings at..." She checked her GPS. "These coordinates. I've discovered what appears to be a crystalline structure containing preserved organic matter. The specimen inside appears to be..." A sudden sound made her stop. It was low, almost at the edge of hearing. A humming that seemed to come from the crystal itself. Sarah's equipment went wild, recording energy spikes that shouldn't be possible from a fossilized specimen. As she stared at the crystal, something changed. For just a moment. So brief she thought she might have imagined it. She saw movement inside. A twitch, a shift, like something in a deep, deep sleep slowly beginning to stir. Sarah backed away, her heart pounding. The crystal's glow seemed stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Her scanner showed energy readings climbing higher and higher. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just a fossil. And after all these centuries, it might not be dead at all. The storm outside grew stronger, but Sarah barely noticed. She had just made the discovery of the century. But as she stood there, watching the crystal pulse with its strange light, one thought kept running through her mind. Some things stay buried for a reason. News of Sarah Chen's discovery spread like wildfire through the scientific community. Within days, the quiet Mongolian cave became a bustling research site. Heavy equipment rumbled through the mountain paths as teams of scientists set up their laboratories in the shadow of the ancient peaks. Dr. James Miller, the famous xenobiologist, arrived with his team of specialists. His weathered face showed no emotion as he first laid eyes on the crystal structure, but his hands trembled slightly as he took his first readings. "In 30 years of studying possible alien life forms," he said to Sarah, "I've never seen anything like this." He tapped the crystal scanner with his finger. "This material, it's not just unknown to science. It defies our basic understanding of crystal formation." The research team discovered something odd about the crystal surface. It was warm to the touch, holding steady at exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, human body temperature. Regular crystals didn't do that. They certainly didn't maintain perfect temperature control in a cold mountain cave. But the strange events were just beginning. Lisa Wong, the night security guard, was the first to notice the lights. They danced across the crystal's surface like northern lights, but only between 3:15 and 3:45 a.m. Every single night, same time, same pattern. When they tried to record the lights on camera, the footage showed nothing but static. Then came the sounds. "It's like whale songs," one researcher said, but backwards. The sounds only appeared on recordings made by equipment within 10 feet of the crystal. Anything further away picked up nothing but silence. Sarah found herself spending more and more time near the crystal. She noticed something nobody else had reported. The energy readings from the structure got stronger when she was nearby. At first, she thought it was just her imagination. But after secretly logging the data for a week, there was no doubt. The crystal responded to her presence. Dr. Miller's team made another disturbing discovery. The crystal's molecular structure wasn't fixed. It was slowly changing. Microscopic alterations, but definitely changing. Like it was adapting. "Look at this," Dr. Miller showed Sarah one evening, pointing to his microscope. The crystal sample they were studying was forming patterns, perfect geometric shapes that shifted and moved like living things. "This isn't random. There's intelligence behind this." But it was what happened on the 15th night that changed everything. Sarah was working late, analyzing some data, when all the equipment in the cave suddenly turned off. Even battery-powered devices went dead. The only light came from the crystal itself, which had started to pulse with a deep blue glow. In the darkness, Sarah heard a sound like cracking ice. Her flashlight beam revealed something impossible, a web of microscopic lines spreading across the crystal's surface. The mighty structure was developing cracks. Dr. Miller rushed in with his team, their emergency lights casting strange shadows on the cave walls. As they watched in amazement, the cracks formed patterns, shapes that looked eerily similar to the strange markings Sarah had followed to find this place. "It's not breaking," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with understanding. "It's waking up." The crystal's glow intensified, and deep within its core, something moved. Something that had been waiting for centuries. Something that had been looking for the right person to find it. And now, looking at the ancient symbols spreading across the crystal's surface, Sarah realized a terrifying truth. She hadn't discovered the crystal by accident. It had called her here. The cracking sounds grew louder, echoing through the cave like ancient thunder. Dr. Miller ordered an immediate evacuation, but Sarah couldn't move. She stood transfixed as the crystal's light pulsed in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. The being inside the crystal wasn't just preserved. It was ready to be reborn, and it had chosen its moment carefully. As the research team rushed to save their equipment and gather their data, nobody noticed that the cave markings Sarah had originally followed were changing. The ancient symbols were rearranging themselves, forming new patterns, telling a new story. A story about what happens when humanity finally discovers it's not alone in the universe, and why some secrets were buried on Earth long before humans walked on its surface. The world's top scientists gathered around the laboratory table, staring at the holographic display in stunned silence. Dr. Miller pointed to the strange, twisting patterns floating above them. "This," he said slowly, "is the DNA we extracted from the crystal's surface." He pressed a button, and another image appeared beside it. "And this is human DNA. Notice anything strange?" Sarah leaned forward, her eyes widening. The alien DNA wasn't a double helix. It was a complex, shifting structure that seemed to move and change as they watched. But there was something else. Hidden within its patterns were sequences that looked almost human. "That's impossible," one scientist whispered. But they all saw it. Whatever was inside that crystal didn't just look like a dragon. It shared genetic patterns with Earth life. But how? And why? The dreams started that night. Sarah found herself soaring through star-filled skies she'd never seen. Massive gas giants with rings of crystal swirled beneath her, cities floating in clouds, civilizations built inside stars. The dreams felt more real than reality itself. But she wasn't the only one experiencing strange things. Jake Martinez, the team's sound engineer, discovered something bizarre. The crystal's humming wasn't random noise. It was a language. But only certain people could hear it. Those who could describe it as singing in colors or tasting memories. "Look at this brain scan," Dr. Miller showed Sarah one morning. "These are the patterns of people who can hear the crystal." He pulled up another image. "And these are ancient cave paintings from around the world, all showing the same patterns. Someone's been trying to teach us this language for thousands of years." Then came the military. Colonel Rebecca Hayes arrived with a team of armed soldiers and advanced equipment. "This site is now under government control," she announced. But Sarah noticed something odd about the colonel's eyes when she looked at the crystal. A flash of recognition, like she'd seen it before. The crystal was changing faster now. Its surface had developed intricate patterns that shifted like liquid metal. The temperature in the cave rose steadily, and researchers reported strange dreams of flying through space. During one experiment, everything changed. They were testing the crystal's reaction to different energy frequencies when all their equipment suddenly activated at once. Computers displayed ancient symbols. Phones played impossible sounds. Even the military's classified devices went haywire. The crystal's surface began to ripple like water, its color changing from blue to a deep, pulsing purple. The temperature spiked, and for a moment, everyone in the cave felt weightless. Sarah stepped forward, drawn by an irresistible force. In the crystal's surface, she saw reflections of worlds that never existed on Earth, creatures that defied imagination, a civilization that had mastered the art of dreaming between stars. "Don't touch it," Colonel Hayes shouted, but she was too late. Sarah's hand made contact with the crystal's surface. It felt like touching liquid starlight. In that moment, everything stopped. The humming, the lights, even time itself seemed to pause. Then Sarah spoke, but the voice wasn't her own. "We have waited so long," she said in a language everyone somehow understood. "Through ice ages and extinctions. Through the rise and fall of countless species, waiting for the right ones to evolve. Waiting for you." The crystal's surface became transparent, revealing the massive being inside. Its eyes opened, eyes that held the wisdom of eons. Wings made of living crystal unfurled in suspended animation. Colonel Hayes didn't seem surprised. "It's happening again," she whispered. "Just like Antarctica." The cave filled with a light that shouldn't exist on Earth, and in that light, everyone saw the truth. The crystal wasn't a fossil. It was an egg. And after millions of years of waiting, carefully guiding human evolution from the shadows, preparing Earth for this moment, it was finally ready to hatch. Sarah's mind filled with ancient memories, not just of one being, but of an entire species that had seeded the galaxies with life. They hadn't come to Earth by accident. They had chosen it, shaped it, protected it, and now they needed humanity's help. As alarms blared and soldiers rushed to secure the site, Sarah understood her role in something far greater than herself. She wasn't just an archaeologist who had made a lucky discovery. She was the key to awakening something that had been guiding human destinies since the first creatures crawled out of Earth's ancient oceans. The dragon was about to rise, and nothing in human history had prepared them for what would happen next. Something had changed in Sarah's mind since touching the crystal. The cave markings that once looked like random symbols now made perfect sense. She could read them as easily as English. They're not just stories, she told Dr. Miller one morning, her hands shaking with excitement. They're star maps, instructions, warnings. She pointed to a series of swirling patterns. This shows how they traveled here. They didn't use ships. They used dreams. Dr. Miller watched as Sarah quickly filled notebook after notebook with translations. Dreams as a method of space travel. He adjusted his glasses nervously. That's impossible. Not dreams like we know them, Sarah explained. They found a way to move their consciousness through space-time using crystalline structures as anchors. This cave, she gestured around them. It's not just a cave. It's a receiver. Meanwhile, something even stranger was happening in space. Dr. Zhang from China's largest telescope facility contacted their team with shocking news. The mysterious deep space signals they'd been tracking for decades had suddenly changed. Now they perfectly matched the energy signature from their crystal. But that wasn't all. Around the world, people started reporting the same dream. Flying through star-filled skies alongside massive crystalline beings. Most brushed it off as coincidence, influenced by leaked photos of the Mongolia discovery. But Colonel Hayes knew better. It's happening faster than last time, she muttered during a classified briefing. They're all waking up. Sarah's connection to the crystal grew stronger each day. She began experiencing memories that weren't her own. Memories of a civilization that had mastered the art of conscious evolution. They could reshape their bodies like humans changed clothes, transform matter with thought, and travel between stars on bridges made of crystallized time. But with these memories came a devastating truth. Late one night, while everyone else slept, Sarah snuck into the cave. The crystal's surface had become like liquid mercury, reflecting impossible colors. As she approached, it responded to her presence, rippling like water in zero gravity. "Show me," she whispered. "Show me what happened to your people." The crystal's surface cleared, and Sarah saw it all. A civilization at its peak, spreading life throughout the galaxy. But they discovered something they weren't ready for, a truth about the nature of consciousness itself. Their experiments tore holes in reality. Dark things crept through, things that shouldn't exist. In desperation, they scattered themselves across the universe, hiding in crystalline eggs on countless worlds. Each egg contained not just a single being, but the entire knowledge of their civilization. They would sleep, waiting for other species to evolve enough to help them fix their mistake. Humanity wasn't chosen by accident. There was something unique about human consciousness, something the crystal beings needed. As Sarah watched these memories unfold, her own mind began to change. She started seeing patterns in everything. Weather systems, human migration, even internet traffic. The world looked different through crystal eyes. Dr. Miller found her the next morning, surrounded by complex equations drawn on the cave floor. "Sarah," he asked cautiously, "what is all this?" "The missing piece," she said, her eyes reflecting impossible colors. "Why they chose Earth. Why they guided our evolution. We're not just meant to wake them up." She looked at him with eyes that had seen the birth of stars. "We're meant to help them save the universe." But they weren't the only ones who knew this truth. Colonel Hayes received a coded message. Similar crystals were activating in other locations. Antarctica, the Mariana Trench, the core of the Sahara Desert, each one calling out to specific humans nearby. In his private lab, Dr. Miller made a terrifying discovery. The crystal's DNA wasn't just similar to human DNA. It was changing it. Anyone who spent too much time near the crystal was slowly being transformed at a genetic level. Sarah knew she should be afraid. Her body and mind were becoming something else, something that had never existed before, a bridge between human and crystal being. But instead of fear, she felt only wonder. Then the crystal spoke to everyone at once. Its voice filled their minds with images of beauty and terror. The message was clear. Time was running out. The holes they had torn in reality millions of years ago were growing. The dark things were getting closer. And humanity's next choice would determine not just Earth's fate, but the fate of consciousness itself throughout all realities. As military leaders argued about what to do and scientists desperately tried to understand what was happening, Sarah stood before the crystal, finally understanding her role. She wasn't just a translator or a genetic bridge. She was the first of a new kind of being, one that could exist in both crystal dreams and human reality. A guardian of the spaces between spaces. The crystal had chosen well. Now it was time for Sarah to choose what she would become. The transformation had begun. Deep within the crystal's core, something ancient stirred. The being inside was far more than just a dragon-like creature. It was a living library of an entire civilization, a guardian of secrets that could reshape reality itself. Sarah stood before it, her transformed mind now able to perceive dimensions beyond human understanding. What she saw made her gasp. The crystal being wasn't just alive, it was dreaming. And in its dreams, it was holding back a darkness that threatened to devour all existence. They're called the Void Eaters, Sarah explained to the Emergency Council of World Leaders, her eyes now shimmering with crystalline patterns. The crystal beings discovered them when they first learned to travel through dreams. They're hungry for consciousness itself. Dr. Miller's latest tests confirmed the impossible. The crystal's structure wasn't just changing Sarah. It was changing the very fabric of space around the cave. Reality itself was becoming more flexible. "Look at this," he said, dropping a pen near the crystal. Instead of falling, it drifted sideways, then upward, then seemed to exist in multiple places at once. The normal laws of physics don't apply anymore. It's like the crystal is teaching space itself how to dream. But not everyone was celebrating these discoveries. Colonel Hayes received a classified file that shook her to her core. Similar reality distortions had been detected at other crystal sites around the world. And something was coming through. Something that had been waiting in the spaces between spaces for millions of years. The crystal being chose this moment to share its full story with everyone present. The cave walls became like screens, showing visions of their civilization's history. They weren't just advanced aliens. They were the original dreamers of reality. They had discovered that consciousness itself was the fundamental force of the universe. Physical reality was just a shared dream, and they had learned to lucid dream on a cosmic scale. But their discoveries had consequences. By learning to shape reality through dreams, Sarah translated, her voice echoing with ancient knowledge. They attracted the attention of things that feed on consciousness. The Void Eaters found them. Entire solar systems were consumed, not just destroyed, erased from existence itself. The crystal beings had made a desperate choice. They scattered themselves across the universe, placing themselves in crystalline eggs on promising worlds. Each egg contained the combined knowledge and power of their civilization. They would sleep, maintaining dream barriers to keep the Void Eaters at bay, while waiting for other species to evolve. But why humans? Dr. Miller asked, his scientific mind struggling with these revelations. Sarah smiled, her skin now slightly translucent in the crystal's light. Because humans are natural dreamers. Our consciousness is uniquely unstable. We're always imagining, creating, believing in impossible things. We dream even when we're awake. The crystal beings didn't just choose us. They helped create us. The military sensors started picking up something alarming. The gaps between realities were widening. In some places, people reported seeing things that couldn't exist. Cities built from living light, oceans flowing upward, geometry that hurt to look at. The Void Eaters had found them. But the crystal being had prepared for this moment. Through Sarah, it revealed its true purpose. The crystalline eggs weren't just hiding places. They were seeds. Seeds of a new kind of reality, one that could resist the Void Eaters. And humanity's chaotic, dreaming consciousness was the soil these seeds needed to grow. Sarah's transformation was just the beginning. The crystal being hadn't come to Earth to be rescued. It had come to transform humanity into something that could help fight a war for the existence of consciousness itself. Suddenly, every screen in the facility lit up with impossible data. Similar transformations were happening at other crystal sites. Humans with special connections to the crystals were evolving, becoming bridges between physical reality and the dream dimensions. Colonel Hayes finally revealed what she'd been hiding. Antarctica, she said, pulling up classified footage. We found one 50 years ago. It showed us possibilities. That's why we were prepared for this. We've been waiting, just like they have. The crystal's surface now rippled like liquid starlight, its inner light pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeats of everyone present. The being inside was ready to emerge, but not as a simple creature. It would emerge as a living gateway between realities. Sarah understood her role at last. She wasn't just a translator or even a bridge. She was the first of a new species, one born from the marriage of human dreams and crystal wisdom, a guardian of the spaces between spaces. As reality itself began to bend around them, Sarah placed her hand on the crystal's surface one final time. The transformation that had begun in her was about to spread to all of humanity. The age of solid reality was ending. The age of waking dreams was about to begin. And in the spaces between spaces, the Void Eaters sensed their ancient prey awakening and trembled. The world's greatest minds gathered in a hastily assembled emergency council, deep beneath the Mongolian mountains. On massive screens around them, live feeds showed impossible events unfolding across the globe. The Amazon rainforest had started growing crystal flowers that sang in colors. In Tokyo, people reported buildings phasing in and out of reality like gentle waves. Over the skies of Cairo, auroras formed shapes that told stories in a language of pure emotion. Sarah stood at the center of it all, her body now a shifting masterpiece of crystal and flesh. Through her transformed eyes, she could see the quantum threads connecting every consciousness on Earth. They glowed like a web of living light, pulsing with the combined dreams of 8 billion minds. The crystal beings aren't just offering us technology, she explained, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies. They're offering us evolution itself, the power to shape reality through directed dreaming. Dr. Miller projected his latest findings. The crystal's influence is spreading exponentially. Look at these readings from children born in the last 24 hours. The data showed newborns across the world exhibiting impossible brainwave patterns. They're being born with the ability to dream while awake. But Colonel Hayes had darker news. The Void Eaters aren't just coming, she revealed, showing classified footage from deep space telescopes. They're already here, hiding in the dark spaces between thoughts, in the moments of doubt between decisions, in the gaps between what we think is real and what actually is. The crystal being shared a vision through Sarah, a devastating glimpse of what happened to their civilization. Worlds didn't just die, they were undreamed. Entire species didn't just go extinct, they were erased from the possibility of ever having existed. Then came the ultimate revelation. The crystal beings didn't run from the Void Eaters, Sarah said, tears of liquid crystal rolling down her cheeks. They set a trap, one that required millions of years and countless worlds to prepare. Earth isn't just another hiding place, it's the battleground they chose for their final stand. Dr. Miller's hands trembled as he shared his theory. The human brain's unique capacity for imagination, our ability to hold contradictory thoughts, our talent for finding patterns in chaos. We weren't accidents of evolution. We were designed as weapons. The crystal in the cave had started growing, spreading through the mountain like living architecture. Those who touched it reported seeing through time itself. Past and future became like different rooms in the same house, rooms they could walk between. But humanity faced a choice. The crystal beings offered to unlock humanity's full potential, to transform Earth into a living dream, where reality itself could be shaped by collective imagination. But the price was steep. To fight the Void Eaters, humans would have to give up their solid, predictable reality. Everything they thought they knew about existence would dissolve into an ocean of infinite possibility. Sarah demonstrated what this meant. With a thought, she transformed the council chamber into a garden of crystalline flowers that grew in 4 dimensions. "This is what we could become," she said. "Not just dreamers of dreams, but shapers of reality itself." Government leaders argued fiercely. Scientists debated the implications. Religious figures searched their texts for guidance. But time was running out. In orbit, astronauts reported seeing holes appearing in space itself, windows into realms where the laws of physics were more like suggestions. The Void Eaters were pushing through, drawn by the awakening crystal beings and the 8 billion dreaming minds of Earth. Then Sarah received a message from the other transformed humans at crystal sites worldwide. Together, they had discovered something extraordinary. The crystal beings hadn't just chosen Earth randomly. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for dreams. It was their ability to face nightmares and still hope. The Void Eaters fed on fear and despair, but humans could stare into the darkness and imagine light. They could face the impossible and dream up solutions. They could look at the end of everything and still believe in beginnings. Sarah stood before the world's leaders, her form now more energy than matter. "We don't need to choose between reality and dreams," she declared. "We need to become the bridge between them." The crystal beings aren't asking us to give up our humanity. They're asking us to expand it beyond the boundaries of what we thought possible. As if in response, the crystal in the cave began its final transformation. Its surface became like liquid stardust, and within its depths, something stirred. Not just the dragon-like being, but a vision of what humanity could become. The choice wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about transcendence. And as the Void Eaters pressed against the thinning walls of reality, humanity faced its greatest decision: remain as they were and face extinction, or evolve into something that even their wildest dreams hadn't prepared them for. The time for dreaming was over. The time for becoming had begun. Humanity made its choice, not with a single voice, but with billions of individual decisions that rippled across the quantum web of consciousness. As the Void Eaters breached the walls of reality, something unprecedented happened. Humans began to dream together. Sarah, now more light than flesh, felt every mind on Earth linking through the crystal network. Children were the first to adapt, their young minds easily bridging the gap between what was real and what could be. They drew pictures that came alive, told stories that rewrote local physics, and shared dreams that became new dimensions. "Look at these readings," Dr. Miller gasped, his laboratory equipment struggling to process the data. "It's not just brain activity. They're generating new forms of energy. Every human mind is becoming a crystal seed." The military's worst fears and highest hopes collided. Colonel Hayes watched as her soldiers transformed, their weapons morphing into living crystals that responded to thought. "We trained to fight aliens," she said, watching her hands become translucent. "Instead, we're becoming them." But the Void Eaters weren't waiting. They poured through the cracks in reality, entities of pure unthought, consuming possibilities wherever they found them. Cities began to flicker, as if reality couldn't decide which version of them should exist. The sky above New York split open, revealing a darkness that wasn't just empty. It was hungry. Then the crystal being revealed its final gift. Through Sarah and the other transformed humans at crystal sites worldwide, it shared the true power of dream technology. It wasn't just about changing reality. It was about creating new ones. "We are not just 8 billion humans," Sarah's voice echoed across the quantum web, linking all minds. "We are 8 billion reality engines. Every story we've ever told, every world we've imagined, every dream we've ever dreamed, they're all real. And now we can reach them." The transformation accelerated. Around each crystal site, reality became fluid. The transformed humans learned to fold space like origami, to weave time like fabric, to sing new laws of physics into being. The crystal beings' knowledge merged with human creativity, creating something entirely new. But the Void Eaters were adapting too. They learned to mimic human fears, to wear the faces of nightmares. They offered a different choice: the peace of non-existence, the quiet of undreaming. That's when Sarah discovered the crystal being's final secret. "The Void Eaters aren't our enemies," she announced, her revelation shocking everyone. "They're the dreams that the crystal beings rejected, the possibilities they were afraid to explore. They're not trying to destroy reality. They're trying to become part of it again." Dr. Miller's instruments recorded the impossible. The Void Eaters weren't consuming reality, they were transforming it, trying to find a form that could exist in the crystal being's perfect universe. The solution wasn't to fight, it was to dream bigger. Sarah reached out to the nearest Void Eater, not with weapons or shields, but with something uniquely human: empathy. She offered it not destruction or acceptance, but transformation, the ability to dream itself into something new. The effect rippled across dimensions. The Void Eaters paused their assault, sensing something they'd never encountered before: the possibility of change without destruction. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't their ability to dream. It was their ability to help others dream too. The crystal being emerged at last, not as a dragon of stone and light, but as a living bridge between all forms of consciousness. Through it, humans learned to help the Void Eaters dream themselves into new forms. Reality wasn't destroyed or preserved, it was reimagined. Cities became living things, their streets flowing like rivers of possibility. The sky became a canvas where thoughts danced as colors. Children played games that created pocket universes, while scientists explored laws of physics that changed like seasons. Sarah stood at the center of it all, no longer just human or crystal being, but something else: a dreamer of dreams who could help others find their own dreams. She watched as humanity spread across the stars, not with ships of metal, but with vessels made of crystallized imagination. The crystal beings' long wait was over. Their gamble had paid off. In humanity, they hadn't just found survivors. They'd found artists who could paint with reality itself. But this wasn't the end of the story. As Sarah looked out across the transformed Earth, she saw the coordinates appearing in the quantum web, locations of other worlds, other species, other dreamers waiting to wake up. The crystal beings hadn't seeded just Earth, they'd seeded countless planets. And now it was humanity's turn to help them dream. The age of solid reality was over. The age of infinite dreams had begun. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, on a planet circling a distant star, another human was about to find another crystal, waiting to tell them about the wonders their species had become. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning to be dreamed.